The July 9th letter, in combination with the May 28th meeting, is Srila Prabhupada's order to become guru. Logic, tied in a knot or not. As I've noted, the GBC do recognize the link given in this letter. I mean, they have to because it's there. However, they have viewed it in an entirely different way. Referring to the May 28th meeting where Srila Prabhupada had said,
to act as is that called
in the GBC article, Disciple of My Disciple, the GBC stated, and I quote from their article, the word recommend is also important. Srila Prabhupada is not appointing acharyas. The initiations must continue. And this can only be done through Srila Prabhupada's disciples. There is no appointment of gurus or successors, only a recommendation that certain disciples start the natural process. But a recommendation from the spiritual master is as good as an order. And the recommendation of certain devotees in the July 9th letter is a follow-up to the order that Srila Prabhupada's disciples should take up the work of spiritual master after his departure. Srila Prabhupada is promising to do something, and he will do it in the July 9th letter. And one of the people that Prabhupada is now speaking to will write that letter. How then can the proxy initiation adherents, the Ritvik supporters of the Ritvik Ross system, say that the July 9th letter can be understood only without reference to this conversation? Rather, the July 9th letter begins the process Srila Prabhupada is describing here. End of that quote from the disciple of my disciple. I mean, when I read statements like this, the first impression I get is summed up with one word: convoluted. I don't even know where to start. I'm going to read my script, but I want to go off script to just, what was written there is just so convoluted. We will analyze this step by step. First, they state that the word recommend is not appointing. The word recommend is also important. Srila Prabhupada is not appointing acharyas. Then they state that the recommendation is just as good as an order. A recommendation from the spiritual master is as good as an order. Do these men think they are circus clowns? Or what? They are simply juggling words. Or as Srila Prabhupada used to call it, word jugglery. They are really mixing it up here. Shoo, 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 shoo. They're juggling it up. They are contradicting themselves. They say that Srila Prabhupada didn't appoint anyone to be acharya. Well, that's a fact. They admit Prabhupada didn't appoint anyone. He didn't order, and he didn't appoint anyone to be actual acharya and to be the next guru. He only used the word recommend. But then they turn around and say that when the guru recommends, that is as good as an order. Okay, this really clogs up the logic processor. I mean, they agree that Srila Prabhupada didn't appoint anyone to be actual guru. He just recommended them. Then they tell us that a recommendation is just as good as an order. So that's why I say, when I say that we must recognize and include the 5 key words in our analysis, this is not twisting and bending and stretching or wrangling or juggling words. Prabhupada said those words. He said, after this is settled up, then I'll do this. So it's not settled in that day. That's not stretching anything. It's not bending any of the words he said. It's not twisting, bending, stretching, or whatever. It's not juggling any words. We're just taking his exact words and we apply them. And we reach our logic conclusions. But here the GBC are engaged in so much twisting, bending, and juggling. They admit there was no appointment. Prabhupada didn't appoint them to become gurus. Finally, it took the GBC so many years, but finally they realized that much. After they kicked out so many of Prabhupada's disciples, when they stood up and said, hey, Prabhupada didn't actually appoint anyone guru, get out of Prabhupada's movement. Then they finally realized, after so many years. But then they say that to recommend someone is just as good as ordering them. I mean, what we... Whoa. Hold on here. To recommend is not to order. It's totally two different things. To order someone, that's practically the same as appointing them. But let's not get too nitpicky here. I just find that this part of their logic is just so flawed already. But what are the GBC really talking about here? I mean, they are saying that Srila Prabhupada didn't appoint 11 men to become gurus. Well, that's, finally they got that right. But then they go ahead and state, as if it was a real fact, an actual fact, that he recommended them to be guru. Rofl. What is that? R-O-F-L. What's that? Am I supposed to? Oh, I'm not supposed to read that. That's my note to myself. Oh, I see. Rofl. It means rolling on the floor, laughing. Just one second. I got it. The script says. Jeez. All right. I'm back. So, okay, where was I? All right. Now that I've completed that part of the script, yes, it's a fact that on May 28th, Srila Prabhupada had not appointed anyone to be Acharya. Yes, we knew that. Nor did he order anyone to become an Acharya that day. On my order, but by my order and when I order, that person will become a guru, but he wasn't ordering these men. Well, GBC finally agreed to that. He didn't order them on October 18th either, and we'll get to that in the timeline, or any other day before he departed. But what is so laughingly funny about this totally false statement made by the GBC is neither did His Divine Grace recommend anyone to become an Acharya or Guru either. What he actually said was, I recommend some of you to act as officiating Acharyas. Ritvik, yes. Yet the GBC just fabricate a false statement. They twist and bend words. Officiating Acharyas, Ritviks, into just one word alone, Acharya. An officiating Ritvik is one who officiates the ceremonial aspects of the initiation on behalf of the actual initiating Acharya. And when he did give his final and settled up system, he then called and defined these men as Ritvik representatives of the Acharya, and clearly defined their function as that of an officiating ceremonial priest who performed the ceremonial aspects on behalf of His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. That is all he recommended them to do. Hare Krishna, I'm coming back in a re-edit, because when I was editing this original, I didn't explain why I chose this article. This article, I think the GBC had rescinded it, some years later anyway, because it is so flawed. But I did it I chose it because, well, it is so flawed. You can see there's so many, it's convoluted. It's just, they're putting words in Prabhupada's mouth that he didn't say. Prabhupada recommended his exact words in the May 28th meeting was, I will recommend some of you to be officiating Acharya. They turn around and say Prabhupada recommended Guru. He didn't recommend anyone to be Guru. They're saying that Prabhupada had said that he was recommended they can start the process of becoming Guru. Prabhupada didn't say that. It was not said anywhere. They're just making up words. And they're juggling all the other words and bending and twisting. And that's why I chose this, because it was so obvious. It was so obvious. But this is the problem that the GBC has had for 40 years. All of their arguments, all of them, they wind up the same way. Some of them may sound a little bit more, lofty or but it's all the same thing. Because the path they're on isn't the path Prabhupada wanted. There is no basis in the reality. When it comes down to it, and you look at all the evidence and examine everything, there is no basis for the path they had taken. Their only basis, as I pointed out before, their only basis was a totally flawed, completely wrong, corrupt GBC report that stated incorrectly, completely wrong, that Srila Prabhupada will soon select some men who will initiate their own disciples and become regular gurus on Prabhupada's disappearance. Basically, something like that. And because of that report, and that is not what Prabhupada said, he said he will soon select some men who will be Ritvik. They'll initiate on his behalf. So, because of that report, they'd gone down the wrong path. And now, years later, 20 years later, they adamantly, for 22 years, they proclaimed that Prabhupada had ordered them men to be guru, and he selected them as gurus. And that's why they're so elevated. That's why they can sit on Vyasasans and pretend to be so elevated. Because Prabhupada had selected them to be gurus. He selected them to be Ritviks. That's all. We have the recording, you can hear it. That's all he was doing. It was a criteria, Ritvik, a priest, different places of the world. He just wanted Ritvik priests in different places of the world to perform his initiations, perform the ceremony, the aspects of the initiations on his behalf, for his disciples, for his benefit. I mean, for him as the spiritual master. They were to be assistant, representatives of the Acharya. Ritvik, representatives of the Acharya. That's what he was, that's all he did. That's all they were. The whole thing went down the wrong path because it was based on a totally flawed, corrupt, just outright misleading, wrong GBC report. And that's all the GBC had. In the beginning, as I said, it was innocent. But now, 20 years later, what do they do? What do they do? They've been on the path for 20 some years. What do they do? Oh, Prabhupada actually never really did order anyone to be guru. Oh, well, but he recommended them, right? We'll just say he did. I mean, we'll put it out there. It's wrong. It's all wrong. And so they have to twist, and they have to bend, and they have to juggle. And then the Ritviks kept coming, the Ritviks Ras supporters kept coming at them after that it's all wrong, which your arguments are all wrong. So they, and what do? We're not talking with them anymore. They're poisonous. We don't want to talk to them. Nobody talk to them. Nobody have anything to do with them. They're poisonous. Because they can't defeat it. That attitude, their attitude is the attitude of a fanatic. When you can't defeat someone by higher philosophical logic and shastric understanding, and you just won't have anything to do with them because you don't even talk to them. Don't talk to them. They're poisonous. That is the fanatic. The GBC are on the sentimental platform. Their whole hour, because there is no basis in Prabhupada's. You go back to the July 7th, Prabhupada's just selecting Ritviks. He wasn't selecting gurus. And there's no anywhere in the May 28th meeting or in this letter where Srila Prabhupada said that he wants them to start a process, the natural process of becoming gurus, of the disciplic succession. I just wanted to put this in, that's kind of why I chose this one to use it as an example, because this is typical of all their arguments. And the reason why is because there is no real basis at all within Srila Prabhupada's instructions for the path they've taken. The only way they can try to argue is to start juggling, start twisting, start bending, start putting words in Prabhupada's mouth that he didn't say. Yes, he did talk about becoming actual guru on that day, on May 28th. But as far as the question that was asked of him, how are initiations going to be conducted in the future, particularly when you aren't here, when you're no longer present? How are the initiations going to be conducted? After this, the question you just asked me, how they're going to be conducted, after this is settled up, I shall recommend some of you to act as officiating acharyas. Prabhupada, is that a Ritvik acharya? Ritvik, yes. What am I doing? Am I twisting words? Am I bending anything? Did I just juggle something? I just gave what Prabhupada said. And then in the letter, which he worked on while in very ill health, very poor health, spent 4 days, at least maybe 5 or 6 meetings, and he made sure that that letter conveyed the message that he wanted everyone to know at that time and into the future. And he made sure that at the heading of that letter, right at the beginning of an important document, that it stated the purpose of that document. And the purpose of this document is that it wanted to make sure that everyone understood. It linked back to the May 28th meeting when he said he would soon select some men to act as Ritviks. Here are the Ritviks, here's the list. He said he would do this on May 28th at that meeting with the GBC. And what was that response to? What did he give that response to? Why did he say he was going to soon recommend some people to act as Ritvik? Because of the question that was asked, how are initiations going to be conducted in the future when you're no longer present? Is that twisting words? Did I just bend anything? I didn't bend anything. I didn't bend anything. I didn't juggle anything. This is what the real basis is. This is what the real system was supposed to be. Srila Prabhupada was never supposed to have been removed from his position as the one and only authorized initiator guru for ISKCON. You see how offensive everything has been for 40 years? He has been removed from his own mission. They have been preventing him from carrying on the function that he wanted them to help him carry on with. Everything's baseless. They have no basis. So every time they try to argue, they've got to convolute. They've got to come up with some twisting, bending, juggling, putting words that aren't there. Because there's no other way they can justify what they've just done. And they're too puffed up, too arrogant, too attached to wanting to be gurus, too attached to this idea, this concept, to admit that they were wrong and have been wrong for 40 some years. If they can't come to terms with it, I'm praying that everyone else will. And get them out of the way. Put Prabhupada back. Give him his proper place. Re-establish him. As the only authorized initiator, spiritual master for his mission. Because that is what he wanted. Because he knew no one else was qualified. And he knew everyone needs. So many people are coming. They need a bona fide guru. The only reason that this system, this multi-guru system that the GBC have been carrying on with, even now after 1999 when they realized, Prabhupada never really ordered anyone to be guru. We were confused back then. We were confused in 1977. Yes, they were confused. Why? They were confused by that GBC report. That's what confused them. And then, but in 1999, and we were confused back then, but now we're not confused. Now Prabhupada didn't order anyone to be guru, he recommended us to be guru. He recommended officiating Ritviks. Why can't they stick with the actual truth? Why can't they just quote Srila Prabhupada? They have to put words in his mouth because there is no basis for their system. And they're too arrogant to give it up. They're too attached for mundane reasons, for their own enjoyment. They want to be controllers. They want to have an adoration. I don't know. You tell me what it is. But the point is, every argument they're giving is just like these. Because they don't have any basis. It's not there. It doesn't exist. What am I doing? I'm quoting what Prabhupada said. I'm not twisting. Can you see that? Can you please understand that? So that we can re-establish Srila Prabhupada again in his proper place? He never authorized any of these men to be guru. And he never authorized the GBC to ordain new gurus. I mean, the only reason they're doing that is because of that corrupt GBC report. It all goes back to that report. It all, really. Why are they doing it? Because Srila Prabhupada told they can add to the list of Ritviks. Not gurus. He said they could add to the list of Ritviks, but the GBC said, oh, Prabhupada said he's going to name people who will be guru. That's what the GBC report said. Prabhupada said he's going to name men who will they'll be initiating their own disciples. Oh, this is a list of gurus. Oh, Prabhupada said we can add to this list. We can add to the list of gurus. There is no list of gurus. That idea that Prabhupada's going to name men and they'll be actually initiating guru, that was the GBC report. That wasn't Prabhupada. That was whoever that person was who wrote the report, made a mistake. In the beginning, it was innocent. Whoever made that report, I even think, I honestly believe that if it, and I believe it was Satsvarup, I don't know for sure, but it doesn't matter who it was. But I believe that person who wrote it had no malicious intent. They went into Prabhupada's meeting with sincerity to find out what he wanted. They got confused. And they, not without any fault, because the only way they could come up with such a egregious, totally wrong report is they had some flaw in themselves. And it got manifest into that report. I'm not going to say they're totally innocent, but I don't think it was with intent malice. They were not trying to change what Prabhupada wanted. They got confused. They got mixed up. And he produced a totally wrong report. If it was Satsvarup, as I've already documented, after the meeting, Jayadvaita Maharaj thought that they should go back to Srila Prabhupada and have him sign something in writing that this is actually what he wanted. And Satsvarup was fully agreeable to that. He agreed. Yes, let's do that. And he went back. So he didn't have malice. He wasn't trying to, put something out there that he knew was false. He actually wanted it verified by Srila Prabhupada. So, yes, there was no malice. There was no corruption. There was no conspiracy. Both sides need to understand that. There was no conspiracy. It's just the only way to really, Krishna. Why did Krishna do it? Who knows? Ask Krishna. I don't know. I can't answer that. And God only knows. Does that really mean, though? Oh, that's what Krishna was. Krishna, why? He could have, told the Pandavas who Karna was. He could have resolved everything. But he led it up into the Bhagavad Gita until the war of Kurukshetra. And then, I don't know why. Ask him. He could have prevented all kinds of calamities. Pandavas wouldn't have had to go into the forest for so many years. Why did he do that? I don't know. Ask him. But the point is, I'm going a little bit slow here, and it's probably going to be a little, I hope it's not boring. But I just use this article because to show just how convoluted their arguments are, because they have to. There's no way they can just take Prabhupada's words exactly and say, this is what he said, this is what we are doing, this is it. They've got to twist, they got to juggle, they got to put words in his mouth that weren't there. Prabhupada didn't recommend guru, he recommended officiating acharya. Why didn't they say that? That's what he said. They put guru in their article. And then, Prabhupada was, encouraging them, authorizing them, recommending them to start the process, the natural process of becoming guru. I will put that in my original video. I do make a point on this. It'll come up. But that is not what Prabhupada said. Where does that say? Where did he say that on May 28th, that he was recommending them to start the process, the natural process to become gurus? Where did he say that? Where does it say that in the July 9th letter? It doesn't. Well, where did GBC come up with that? Well, they are saying it. It's an argument they're giving to justify the path they're on. But they can't justify it by just quoting directly what Srila Prabhupada said. What am I doing in my arguments? I'm saying that when Srila Prabhupada is asked how initiations are to be conducted in the future, particularly when he's no longer with us, how will they be conducted, Srila Prabhupada? After this is settled up. I'm not juggling. I'm explaining what those words mean. After this is settled up. This, what is this? The question they just asked. How are initiations to be conducted? After this is settled up, what does that mean? Well, it means that as of May 28th, 1977, Prabhupada hadn't settled up yet how initiations would be conducted when he's no longer present. That isn't a juggling of words. I'm not twisting anything. I'm just simply explaining, just extrapolating a little bit, the meaning of those words. There's nothing, I'm not stretching anything. Prabhupada said, after this, the only thing that was being discussed at that point was that one question. So what does this refer to? It refers to that question. After this, the question you just asked me, how initiations are to be conducted when I'm no longer present, after this is settled up, I shall recommend some of you to act as, not guru, officiating acharya. Oh, Prabhupada, is that officiating acharya? Is that Ritvik acharya you were talking about? Ritvik, yes. Did I just twist anything? Those are the words that Srila Prabhupada actually spoke. He didn't say anything about, I'll recommend guru. I am going to recommend to start a process, a natural process of you becoming gurus. No. He said exactly what I just said he said. And then we have the July 9th letter, an important document. That's in an important document, the first few lines set the purpose of that document. And in that document, Srila Prabhupada made sure he was ill. You can hear the tape, barely speaking, coughing up phlegm. And he spent 4 days, multiple meetings, to make sure that this letter conveyed the exact message that he wanted it to state. And he made sure that in the very beginning of that letter, it gave the purpose, it gave what the real purpose of this directive was going to be. That in May, Srila Prabhupada had a meeting with the GBC, and at that time, he said that he would soon select some men as Ritviks. And here's the list of Ritvik representatives of the Acharya. And what does that do? That link binds, when Prabhupada said, I will recommend some of you to act as officiating Acharya, it binds that statement to this document, Then, why did he say that? That he's going to soon recommend some men? Because that was his reply to the question, how are initiations going to be conducted in the future, particularly, especially when you're no longer present? That was the question. Did I just twist anything? Did I juggle something? I'm just showing exactly what the real truth is, what the real facts are. The real fact is, that is what Prabhupada wanted. The July 9th letter is Prabhupada's final, settled up system that he wanted in place when he is no longer present. And yes, he started it off for while he's present, even though a question was in the future, but particularly when you're no longer present. Prabhupada didn't say anything about these men becoming guru. When they asked him on his behalf, and yes, in my presence, the point was, in my presence, that's an obvious, that's a given, that's a formality, that's a given formality. But how are anybody going to become guru? That is on my order, but by my order. When I order you, that person becomes an actual guru. But that's a different person. Could be the same, but he's talking about two different things. They got mixed up. They got confused. And they only heard at that point, from that point forward, what they really wanted to hear. Could only remember what they really wanted to remember. But let's give Satsvarup, if he was the author of that GBC report, at least he was willing to go into Srila Prabhupada's room and have Srila Prabhupada sign something to verify that what he wrote, or whoever wrote that report, was accurate. And that lies on Tamal, because he thought that wasn't needed. Because Tamal thought he understood everything so perfectly, everybody else is just going to have to accept it. Tamal was acting as Srila Prabhupada's gatekeeper. Even in the July, May 28th meeting, I didn't point it out, but at the very end of the tape, at the very end of that section of the speaking about this topic, at the very end, there's Prabhupada is saying that, when I order you become guru, he becomes, actual guru, whatever, and disciple, my disciple, whatever. And at the end, there's a word, someone says, that's it. The BBT had that written down as Srila Prabhupada saying that's it. When I did the noise reduction, it's very clearly, that is Tamal Krishna's voice. He's saying that's it. In other words, he's cutting off the conversation at that point. Enough of this topic. That's it. That's it. Let's go. And he did that. And Prabhupada didn't object to that. He got things. He just with the nature he was as a secretary, as a personal secretary. He felt Prabhupada was weak. He was sick. Let's go on to the next now. Enough of that. Let's go. Because he also thought they understood everything, but they misunderstood it. Anyway, I'm going, same arguments again, and I'm going a little bit slow right now. I hope, bear with me, because I just wanted to make sure that, it's clear that we are not, I'm not trying to convert anything. I'm not trying to twist anything. I'm just giving the actual facts of what Prabhupada said. When you look at all the other arguments, but the GBC, and just take it theoretically. What if I am correct? What if the GBC, now of course that report is flawed. We can show that. I can see it. I showed it. It's flawed. It's not what Prabhupada said. That report did not faithfully report exactly what Srila Prabhupada said. When he was asked that question on the initiations in the future when he's no longer present, that report did not state that Prabhupada said that after this is settled, meaning it wasn't settled yet, after this is settled, then I shall recommend some of you to act as officiating Ritvik priests. It didn't say that. The report doesn't say that. It says something totally wrong, totally off. So, just theoretically, what if I am correct? And And this is all wrong. The whole thing has been wrong. I'm sorry, I'm going off a script, and I don't know what the point I was going to make. I don't have a script, I'm just ad lib here. And I got off, and so sorry about that. Anyway, I think the point I was trying to make is that if you just accept, theoretically, let's say I'm right, and the whole thing got wrong because of that report and everything went, and we're not supposed to, none of them were supposed to ever sit on Vyasasans and pretend to be gurus. None of the new devotees were supposed to accept them as a guru. Senior devotees are to be respected. That's proper. Senior devotees are to be respected. Senior Vaishnavas. That's proper. Especially if they have some, like a GBC, a sannyasi, you respect them. That's proper. I'm not saying to be disrespect, but they shouldn't have been accepted as guru because they weren't qualified, they weren't authorized. The whole process was wrong. So theoretically, what if I've been right? What if this is right? What if the Ritviks are right? What if this is actually, because this is, where do we go with that? What are the GBC supposed to do with that? But you can see, well, actually, the other point I was going to make is, if we are right and the GBC has been wrong, you can see how and why they have a problem trying to justify and trying to argue their system, trying to show that it is the right path, because there is no basis to it. In the reality, it comes down to it, there is no basis to it. They can't really pin it, and that's why you get reports like this from their side that are convoluted, that are twisting, juggling, a joke. Their logic gets flawed. They get all mixed up. I'll give some examples coming up as well, some other examples. But the reason is because they're trying to give an erudite philosophical justification for their path they've taken, but there is no real basis to it, and they're kind of like and the other problem is they're so attached to the system they've been on, the path they've been on. They don't have the humility, they don't have the devotion to Srila Prabhupada, I'm sorry, to admit that they were wrong. Of course, I shouldn't maybe say that. That's a little bit harsh. I take that back. Because we're all devotees, we're all disciples of Srila Prabhupada, or followers of Srila Prabhupada. We all have devotion to Prabhupada. I take that back. I'm not here to malign anyone. I'm here to try to help Prabhupada, to reestablish his position, the rightful position. He should not have been removed as the one and only authorized guru for ISKCON. He was the only authorized guru. He is. These men were never to be guru. This path was never to been taken. Prabhupada should never have been removed as ISKCON's initiator guru. I can't remember the point I was going to make now about, if they had why can't they see? And that's what I'm trying to do, is present the facts as they are, the real facts, without the twisting, the real facts, the real what Srila Prabhupada actually said, and show that this, what it really is. And I think if someone does have the devotion in their heart, and the intelligence, and the openness, they will understand it. Because it's what it is. It is what it is. It speaks, the facts speak for themselves. The evidence is there. So, I was on the other side. I accepted it. Because that's all you hear. You accept it, that's the way it is. I accepted it for years. Prabhupada must have, I didn't, you can read my personal story. I had my obvious reasons for reservation. But once you hear it over and over and over, and this is what you're told, and this is what, you know, it's called the big lie. You hear something over and over and over, and that's all you ever hear, then you accept it. And that's what's happened in ISKCON. Everyone has heard that over and over and over for so many years. For 22 years, they said Prabhupada had selected them because of their great qualifications to be guru. But we hear the tape. That's not why Prabhupada selected them. And they always told for 22 years that he selected them as gurus. He didn't. He selected them as Ritviks. So, period. That's it. So anyway, how do we resolve it? Because for 43 years we've been on the wrong path. 43 years holding up men as guru who weren't guru. They were never supposed to be guru. None of the Rameshwars, Jayatirthas, Bhagawans, any of them, Jaipatakas, the original ones, none of them. They were supposed to be Ritviks, that's it. That's all. That's all Prabhupada selected. You can hear the tape. That's all he was selecting. That's all the letter states. And that's all he said in May 28th. I shall recommend some of you, after this is settled, I will recommend some of you to act as officiating acharyas. Prabhupada, is that Ritvik acharya? Ritvik, yes. That's all he was selecting. That's all they were to be. They weren't supposed to be worshipped as guru. People weren't supposed to accept them as their guru. If they wanted to be guru, insisted on being guru, and felt they had that authorization from Srila Prabhupada, then they are the ones who had to go outside of ISKCON and start their own ashram, just as Prabhupada was outside of the Gaudiya Math and started his own ashram and became the guru of his ashram. That is what a guru is. He's the guru of the ashram and where he resides, in which he acts as guru. He is the master of that ashram. I brought this up with Mukunda many, many years ago. The gurus have to have their own ashram. And he said, no. He said, Narad Muni, he travels. He's always traveling. He doesn't have an ashram. I said, no, he has an ashram. He said, no, he doesn't. I said, yes, he does. When Hiranyakashipu, Prahlad Maharaj, the wife of Hiranyakashipu was pregnant. The demigods wanted to kill her before the baby was born. Where did Narad Muni take her? He took her to his ashram because he said the child will be a great devotee of Krishna. Yes, Narad Muni has an ashram. All the gurus have their own ashram because they are the spiritual master within their ashram. You can't have 100 gurus in the same ashram and then on top of that have another authority above gurus in that ashram. Then they're not gurus. And that was another point I was going to make. For 22 years, well, first of all, in the very first years, the zonal acharya years, those are the most disastrous years. They were the most disastrous. Because these men were so, trying to be on the same level as Prabhupada, and just see, they had no authority, they had no authorization. They were just be Ritviks, priests. That's all they were supposed to do. But anyway, that was a total fiasco. That almost ended ISKCON. But what happened is temple presidents, enough Prabhupada disciples, made enough noise and got the guru reform, got the zonal acharya, the whole level came down. No more pada titles, no more guru pujas in the temple rooms for them, no more, big vyasasans for them, no more, and everything was put down on a more humble position. And as the years progressed, even though they're still being worshipped as guru and so-called initiating their own disciples, and everyone extols them guru and thinks of them as guru and adores them and praises them. They can be adored, they can be praised as senior Vaishnavas. That's fine. As long as they're, up to the, as long as the adoration or or the respect is proper to who they are, that's fine. But not as guru. They were never authorized. The whole process was never authorized. So I'm going to get lost here again, what my point was. I mean, just look at the facts that I presented, all of the facts. Especially, we're getting into with the letter and the meeting and the letter and the July 7th letter of Prabhupada selecting these men and all the criteria. The link, meaning that this letter is that settled up system that Prabhupada wanted for when he's no longer present. It's solid. Our arguments are actually solid. The only thing is the GBC just can't imagine it. And they're thinking that it's bogus for Srila Prabhupada to remain a guru. They're thinking that is just so bogus, so unacceptable. No Acharya has ever done that. But my point is, no Acharya had ever set up a Ritvik system even while they were present. That system is totally unique. No Acharya had ever started where they could initiate disciples laying ill in bed in Vrindavan and making disciples all over the world through a process where that spiritual master is not physically involved in that process at all, period. There's no past Acharya ever done that. If that process is bona fide, the Prabhupada's body is lying almost unconscious, very weak in Vrindavan, and he's making disciples through this Ritvik system where he's not physically involved, he's not physically present, not physically involved at all. The whole process is now delegated for Ritvik priests to handle and temple presidents to handle all on their own on his behalf. But the disciples are his. He's still the spiritual initiator. He's still giving the spiritual initiation. Physically, he's not involved with it anymore at all. And the GBC accepted that process as bona fide. What is the difference once Srila Prabhupada's Vapu body has stopped breathing? What's the difference? What is the difference? How did it become bogus? How did it lose its spiritual potency? How did it become corrupt and poisonous, deviant? How? That's why I say that is based on a very corrupt concept that the Vapu form of the spiritual master is what was empowering that spiritual initiation. That's the bogus philosophy. That's the poisonous philosophy. That's the apasiddhanta. The Ritvik system is that it was Srila Prabhupada's eternal Vani that empowered that system. It was his spiritual life force, and it was his teachings, his instructions, his orders. That's eternal. That is what empowered that system when he was lying ill in Vrindavan, but his Vapu body was still breathing. And that empowerment did not change one tiny fraction of anything once that Vapu body stopped breathing. Because that spiritual potency that allowed Srila Prabhupada to keep giving spiritual initiation to disciples through that Ritvik process had nothing to do with his Vapu body breathing. It was all 100% based on his spiritual life force and his teachings, Vani, the eternal Vani of the spiritual master. That did not change. That system is not bogus. It is based on Siddhanta, real understanding, real knowledge. It is not based on a bogus idea that the Vapu form is what empowered Srila Prabhupada to give initiations. Prabhupada is supposed to have been, he was set up a system by which he would remain the one, the only authorized guru, initiating spiritual master for his ashram, the ISKCON mission. Anyone else who wants to be guru, feel they have Prabhupada's blessings, his order. They are the ones who are to be outside of ISKCON, not maliciously. They can be nice, they can be friendly with us, but they are the ones who should not be part of ISKCON. They are the ones who need their own ashram in order to be an actual guru of that ashram. That's the real science. That is the real law of disciplic succession. I'm not twisting anything, not inventing anything. That's the real law of disciplic succession. That's the real traditional system. There is no such system in all the disciplic succession of multiple gurus in one ashram, especially where you have an ashram authority above the guru. Then they're not gurus. And that was my other point I was going to make. I think I got lost at some point, but I wanted to make, the reason why, because at the beginning, that whole Ritvik system, that whole Zonal Acharya system was a total disaster. Then after this, and then it went on for a while, up until 1999, and it was still, all these gurus coming and still major fall downs, Harikesh, all these different things. And then in 1999, they realized, you know what, the Ritviks had been right this whole time, and Prabhupada actually never gave an order. And then they have to come up with these convoluted, twisting things to make it still look like but the path they're on is really what Prabhupada still wanted. He's just indirectly, not directly. He's just, and I'm going to lose my point again. But what's keeping the system together? What has kept ISKCON together this whole time? The only reason, and I'm making these points in other places, and I'm really taking a long time here. Bear with me, I'm sorry. But what makes this, how is ISKCON still going on? Why isn't it just totally falling apart? Prabhupada said the Gaudiya Math fell apart because they decided there had to be some guru. Because they decided there had to be a guru. That's why that there had to be guru. Bhaktisiddhanta didn't select a guru. He said the guru will come automatically. He'll be self-recognized, like rising the full moon in the sky. You can't miss it. And so he selected no one. But what is, and so, how is ISKCON going on? I forgot the point that I was going to make there, but anyway, how is ISKCON going on? Why is it going on? The Gaudiya Math failed because they decided there had to be a guru. Well, there's so many gurus in ISKCON. We haven't quite totally failed yet. It's still going on. Two things. And I'll make these points other places too. But 2 points. 2 things that have kept us going. One is just Srila Prabhupada had established a GBC. And that GBC has retained authority above the gurus. Which means that the gurus in ISKCON, as much as they are below a GBC, as much as they don't have, they've tried to come up with this, I'm not going to do it, but parallel lines of authority.
Parallel lines of authority.
Whatever. Anyway, they came up with that idea. Again, it's a concoction. You won't find that in Prabhupada's teachings anywhere, by the way. But as much as these gurus are below the GBC, it has kept these gurus from becoming trying to become gurus. And they're functioning more in the capacity of like a Ritvik than they are a guru. That's the only reason things are kind of going on. Because they're not actually gurus. And they can't function as a real guru because they're not the master in the ashram in which they're functioning as supposedly a guru. They're restricted. They're being regulated. They can't actually be a full master of their ashram because they have no ashram. It's Prabhupada's ashram. And so they have to function under this umbrella. And it's been keeping the system sort of together, but it's not the system that it's supposed to be. And the number one flaw, I wouldn't even call it a flaw, the number one offense, the number one big, gigantic elephant offense is that whole system of propping these people up as some sort of guru, but under a umbrella of a ashram authority, is that the whole system removes his divine grace as his rightful position as the one and only authorized initiator guru for ISKCON. That is the most offensive, inexcusable result of this current system. It is a direct offense to Srila Prabhupada. In ISKCON, he has been kicked out as ISKCON's guru. Prabhupada has been kicked out of his own mission as the actual authorized, proper guru that he wanted to remain for his mission. This is his ashram. He still is the guru. But he's been kicked out. We have to put him back in. We have to. He never authorized Rameshwar, never authorized Jaipataka, never authorized Bhagawan, Bhavananda. He never authorized them to be gurus. And he never authorized the GBC to ordain new gurus. Yes, Indradyumna, Radhanath, none of them. Actually, a long time ago, when children were very young, I wanted them to learn how to respect an actual sannyasi. And I was impressed with Indradyumna's preaching. He was a preaching sannyasi. So I had them learn how to offer obeisance, give him respect when they're young. We should respect preaching sannyasis, elder devotees. They are to be respected. But is he a guru? He was never authorized. Prabhupada never authorized the GBC to authorize gurus, as I've given the example. Actually, let's hear something Prabhupada has to say about self-made guru.
A self-made guru cannot be guru. He must be authorized by the bona fide guru, then he is guru. This is the fact. Yeah. Nobody can be self-made anything. A medical practitioner, he cannot become self-made. That I have studied all the medical books in my home. No. Have you ever gone to the medical college and taken instruction from the bona fide teachers? Then, if you have got the certificate, then you are medical practitioner. Similarly, bona fide guru means he must be authorized by the superior guru. Just like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Amar aggaye guru haiya taro eidi. He must receive the order from the superior. And the superior must be bona fide. Then he is bona fide. Not self-made.
And Prabhupada gives sort of the same example I did in the medical idea. That I didn't even know that. I heard that tape after I came up with my analogy about a medical university. I've given this a little bit before. I gave that example of the medical university and how, an unscrupulous professor or university would give out degrees to people who hadn't completed their training. And I gave that a whole example. I didn't even know until I just happened to heard this just a few days ago. Prabhupada was giving almost the same example. You can't authorize people who aren't qualified. Prabhupada wouldn't do that. None of these men met. We don't know. I'm not going to say no one is qualified. I don't know. But that's between them and Prabhupada. And then if Prabhupada gives them that order, just like Srila Bhaktisiddhanta gave Srila Prabhupada the order. Prabhupada said Bhaktisiddhanta gave him the order. When did he give the order? Probably 20, 30 years after Bhaktisiddhanta left this planet. I know it's a little different, but in 1973, Srila Prabhupada was giving a class on Bhaktisiddhanta's disappearance day in Los Angeles. And I was there and Prabhupada was saying that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta came to him. Now, this is not about being guru. Maybe it was, and Prabhupada didn't say the whole thing, but Prabhupada said Bhaktisiddhanta came to him in his dream and told him, in a vision, and told him he had to take sannyas. Prabhupada's face, I think there's a video, Prabhupada's face, he looked horrified. And he said, I was horrified. He said he was horrified. He'd have to give up family, children, his wife, take sannyas. But he did. And I don't know, I can't speculate. But in that, I can't speculate and say that at the same time that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta had given the order to become guru. But I will say that I am confident it came in that same way. So if someone like Indra somebody says, they not just say, but Prabhupada actually comes to them in this vision and a dream and tells them, now I order you, you become guru, you become authorized. Then they can become guru. I'm not against that, but not in Srila Prabhupada's ashram. They have to take leave of Srila Prabhupada's ashram. Just like a brahmachari takes leave. Starts his own ashram, grihastha ashram. The sannyasi can't be a guru in his own guru's ashram unless his guru is given that ashram over to him as his successor. Prabhupada didn't do that with anyone. No one can claim ISKCON as theirs. And none of these men should be claiming ISKCON as their ashram in which they can act as a guru. Because it's Prabhupada's ashram. It belongs to Srila Prabhupada. He's the initiator guru here. The only one. And I know this is 43 years. And we've been doing this whole system for 43 years. And everyone's thinking guru, guru, gurus, 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 gurus. And the gurus are thinking I'm guru, guru, guru. And the disciples are the new devotees and they're guru, guru, guru. It's all wrong. They were never to be. It was never to happen. So how are we going to turn it back? Is it too late? No. Prabhupada will be present, this ISKCON movement, he said, for 10,000 years. We're just a speck. We're just getting started. Okay, things got off a little bit. Now put them back. Let's get on track. And why do we need to do this now? Because the world's falling apart. The social fabric is unraveling all around us. In America, the governments, communism, the China building up, suppressive country, suppressive state governments. Russia, military, U.S. military. And then the social fabric. Democrat, Republican, this, that. Things are falling apart. Rioting in the streets. No one can get along. I was just reading how people are fleeing New York. They said in the few years, people are just going to flee these big cities. Where are they going to go? Prabhupada had said that they will come to our farming communities by the millions to escape the cities. Where are the farming communities? Where are they? What did we do? What happened? We didn't follow Prabhupada's plan. Establish Varnashram. 1974, he said every temple must establish Varnashram immediately. Where's Varnashram? What happened to it? We didn't do it. There are so many things we need to do. But this has been keeping us completely on the wrong track. We're on the wrong path on such an important thing. And Srila Prabhupada was never supposed to have been removed from his own mission as the one and only authorized spiritual master. Now we're out in the middle of nowhere. We're spinning our wheels what are we doing? We're going down a wrong path for 40 years. Let's get back on the path. Let's establish Srila Prabhupada not only as the spiritual master for his ISKCON mission, but Srila Prabhupada is the spiritual master, Jagat Guru, true Jagat Guru for the whole world. One. Right now, okay, there can be more. Prabhupada disciples can become Guru if Prabhupada authorizes, if he gives that order, on my order, but when I order. I mean, how does it go? On my order, but by my order, when I order. That person will become Guru. But how can they be Guru within ISKCON? They can't. They'll have to start their own ashram. That means there'll be branches of ISKCON going out. Instead of all trying to confusingly work within one organization, one ashram, there could be thousands of ashrams, all branches of ISKCON. That can be there. That will happen. But Srila Prabhupada, ISKCON, the main ashram, that is Srila Prabhupada's. Not everyone. I've heard this from new devotees, from those who have accepted some of these men. They said they don't even want to be Prabhupada's disciple. They want to be that person's disciple because they want to have that personal experience, that ras, that's personal relationship. If they're authorized by Srila Prabhupada's divine order, and they have reached that qualification, truly, I would have no problem with it, but not within ISKCON. Within ISKCON, there's only Prabhupada. And how are we going to do this? How are we going to get it back? I'm making this and it's going on and I know I've made another one and I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm going to do it. It's because this is what the presentation is about. So how are we going to do it? I don't know. But it's going to take more than just a handful of people like me that want to do it. But we have to realize that whole system was wrong. We're going to have to get over it, accept it, and deal with it. And all of the evidence I'm pointing to me, it's just so absolutely clear. I just get bewildered when I think how nobody else can accept it. Why did they reject it? It's just so absolutely clear. Every single argument, every single point, everything. And when you try to argue their system, there's no basis. It has no real basis. Prabhupada never said anything about multiple gurus. Ever. You find one place where Prabhupada said that ISKCON will have multiple gurus in the future. ISKCON. He said his disciples, he wanted to become guru, if they're qualified first. But he never said in or out of ISKCON on that. He never said, but then you look at tradition. You look at what works. The only thing that you look at a GBC above a guru in an ashram, it doesn't work. That's the way I'm saying. That's why it's going on today, but it's not going on with pure energy. It's not going on with purity and the pure, it's convoluted. Because there shouldn't be people posing themselves as some kind of sub-guru underneath, an ashram authority and a whole bunch of sub-gurus in the same. There's no tradition for that. And there's absolutely none of Prabhupada's guidance on that. And he never talked about that. Talked about GBC being the ultimate authority and never mentioned anything about gurus and where they fit in, because it wasn't actually his plan. I don't know what his plan was. He always wanted to, like he said, he always wanted to that we become guru, but he didn't say how that would work. He never did. He never did say, if I order you to become guru, you become guru. He never said. Within ISKCON, outside of ISKCON, what do they do? He never said. But then we look at tradition. We look at what Prabhupada did. What did Prabhupada do? He wasn't part of the Gaudiya Math. He started his own. So we look at tradition, we look at example that had been set, and that's why we come to those conclusions. When there's an absence of that specific instruction by Srila Prabhupada, then we look at his own example, and we look at the tradition. The disciplic succession, how does it normally work? That's what it is. There's no past presidents of a GBC or with a whole bunch of different ashram centers and one organization, but a bunch of different centers and a whole bunch of gurus functioning underneath some ashram authority. It's just that never happened. And that there's no guidance on anywhere. No precedents, no nothing. And that's why it's always been sort of chaotic. Because now nobody really knows exactly how it's supposed to work. Because it isn't supposed to work. It wasn't supposed to happen. How are we going to do it? Anyway, I'm sorry I'm rambling on. I'll probably have to... I just wanted to point that out, why I chose this article. And, why, just as an example, you can't argue their system. It's unarguable because it's no basis. The only basis is that corrupt GBC report. That's the only basis. And that was corrupt. So all their arguments, whole system's corrupt. Can we please put Prabhupada back, reestablish him? And all those who are thinking they're good, hey, you have someone, you already have a relationship. Your relationship was Indradumna, your relationship was with whoever. I had in the last 2 years, I had a nice, friendly and good relationship with Bhakti Charu Maharaj. I really, really was looking forward to his, I wanted to know his response to this presentation. I was really hoping I would be able to get this done. I didn't know he was going to leave his body. Nobody did. And I was really looking forward to when I did have it completed, and I wanted to actually present it to him first. I wanted to know what he would think. But I was going to say, so you have a relationship with one of these men. You say you're not a Prabhupada disciple, you were so-called disciple of them. And you want to retain that relationship. But they shouldn't be as guru. Senior godbrother, senior Vaishnav, if they're GBC or they're sannyasi or they're just senior, that's okay. I mean, look, like Gauridas Pandit, when the devotee, when he was serving Tamal Krishna, he was Tamal Krishna's brahmachari servant. Sannyasis had brahmachari servants. That's okay. That's proper. He wasn't guru then. A lot of them had brahmachari servants. Sodanandan had his brahmachari servant. That's proper. You can respect, you can take guidance, you can... Anyway, there can be relationships, but that doesn't have to be like guru master. Senior devotee, respect. You can give respect, proper respect, within their position. That's not fine. That's needed. That's wanted. That has to be there. But as accepting someone as a guru who's not a guru, not really, never was authorized. The GBC never had authorization. Never. You can see how Prabhupada, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, wouldn't select anyone because no one showed that they were qualified right then. He couldn't see. No one qualified. Prabhupada hadn't manifested his qualifications yet. I think he knew. He told Prabhupada, you will do everything. He knew. But he didn't select him yet. Told him, stay aloof. But he didn't select anyone, actually, at that time. Prabhupada says that. Why? And Prabhupada said, because he saw no one was qualified. No one had at that time. And so, what did he do? He selected no one. Because that integrity cannot be compromised. The integrity of the disciplic succession cannot be compromised. And so what did Prabhupada do? He wanted to give his order. He's still waiting to give his order. He wanted to give his order. But until someone is qualified, he can't do that. He will not compromise. So then what? ISKCON. It's been established. Those seeds are everywhere. His books are going out by the millions. The temples, the Hare Krishna's explosion was still taking place. And it just continued to grow. Not at the pace it was, but it still continues to grow. So all these souls, they need a bona fide spiritual master, a truly qualified, true Mahabhagavad, especially a divine representative of Krishna. He's a authorized, I should say, representative of Krishna. Shakti Vesh avatar. That's Srila Prabhupada. And in place, because there was no one else to select, Srila Prabhupada, in a very humble, out of complete compassion, chose to remain as the initiator, spiritual master, for as long as needed. As long as ISKCON will be there. As long as he has followers. He gave the example of Lord Jesus. As long as one accepts the teachings of Lord Jesus, he is your spiritual master. If we accept the teachings of Srila Prabhupada and accept him as our savior, he is our spiritual master. Not in predominant Shiksha Guru. I'm talking about he is, because Diksha is given through knowledge. One is initiated by the torchlight of knowledge coming from the spiritual master. That is the initiation. Srila Prabhupada gives spiritual initiation. And he needs to be reestablished in his mission. He should never have been kicked out of his own mission, as his followers were. Those who spoke up and said, this guru system is wrong. No, they're not gurus. They're not qualified. Out. But Prabhupada was also kicked out as being the actual guru in his own mission. All of us have committed great offense against him. Reestablish his position. All right, I'm going on. And it's going to make the presentation probably another hour, and I'm adding to the presentation. I apologize. But I don't apologize, actually. I don't apologize at all. I'm going to drive the same point again and again because it needs to be done. All right, enough now. It's getting boring, I'm sure. I don't want to bore you all, but just want to make those points. Hare Krishna. Keep going on. There's more to come. Hare Bol.
Why did Gauri was bad? Because they try to become more than Guru. Before passing away, he came all directions. And never said that this man should be the next after. But these people, just after passing away, they began to fight. Who shall be Asham? That is very. They never thought why Guru Maharaj gave us instructions of everything, why he did not say that this man. They wanted to create artificially somebody else, and everything failed. They wanted to create artificially somebody else, and everything failed. They did not consider in those common sense that he, Guru Maharaj, was there to appoint somebody as Acharya. Why did he not say? He said so many things. And this point he missed. And this point he missed. The real point. The real point. And then he said, let's declare, unfit person, unfit person, unfit person, unfit person. Let's declare unfit person to become Acharya. Then another man comes, So better remain a foolish person perpetually to be directed by Guru Maharaj. That is perfect. And as soon as you learn, the Guru Maharaj is there. Now I am so advanced that I can kill my Guru and he'll be gone. Now I am so advanced that I can kill my Guru and he'll be gone.
I'm going to go back to the Disciple of My Disciple article by the GBC. It also stated in that article, I quote, "The initiations must continue, and this can only be done through Srila Prabhupada's disciples," end of quote. This idea that the initiations must continue is the same exact unnecessary thinking that Srila Rasik Sridhar Maharaj insisted upon after Srila Bhaktisiddhanta left this world. So I'm going to quote from the letter Srila Prabhupada wrote to Rupanuga. It was dated April 28th of 1974. He, and Prabhupada is speaking of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, he never recommended anyone to be Acharya of the Gaudiya Math. But Sridhar Maharaj is responsible for disobeying this order of Guru Maharaj. And he and others who are already dead unnecessarily thought that there must be one Acharya. If Guru Maharaj could have seen someone who was qualified at that time to be Acharya, he would have mentioned. Because on the night before he passed away, he talked of so many things, but never mentioned an Acharya. His idea was Acharya was not to be nominated amongst the governing body. So Sridhar Maharaj and his two associate gentlemen unauthorizedly selected one Acharya, and later it proved a failure. Again, that was from a letter Srila Prabhupada wrote to Rupanuga on the 28th of April, 1974. I discuss this letter and this issue in more depth in an ancillary note, Will ISKCON Fail Just Like the Gaudiya Math? Srila Prabhupada describes Sridhar's creating a guru without authority as being disobedient to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's order not to do so. And our Srila Prabhupada repeated that instruction of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, quoting him as saying Acharya was not to be nominated amongst the governing body. Srila Prabhupada never rescinded that order. It is a standing order of both Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati and our Srila Prabhupada. But this idea that there must be a guru, or the initiations must continue, so let others and myself become guru, even though Prabhupada didn't give us the direct order, even though we aren't really qualified, that is totally bogus and completely against what Srila Prabhupada would have ever wanted. When Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati departed this world, he didn't see that anyone was yet qualified. And what did he do? He selected no one. He selected no one to be the next Acharya. That means the initiations did not continue until Srila Prabhupada began taking disciples 30, 35 years, 30 some years later. While the GBC, are arguing that the initiations must continue, Srila Prabhupada actually agreed with that. But because there were no qualified men to do so, Srila Prabhupada chose to take an unusual step by completing this system that he had already been working on, already been started. He had already been delegating so many aspects of the initiation process, so he just finalized it and made it a complete proxy system, a Ritvik system. And so he authorized disciples to carry out the process of performing the physical aspects of the initiations, where Srila Prabhupada would remain the actual Diksha Guru. So yes, he agreed because of the unusual circumstances. Because of the unusual circumstances, he had just started an international mission all over the world. Devotees were just, conditioned souls were just taking to Krishna consciousness. And he saw no one is actually qualified to become the next acharya. And yet a next acharya, a bona fide guru was needed. So he took the unusual step of establishing and authorizing this ongoing Ritvik representative of the acharya system. After the zonal acharya fiasco, the GBC went on without any authority given by Srila Prabhupada, by any past acharya or scripture, and the GBC gave themselves the authority to select another guru, all without authority. We don't accept the presumption of the GBC that the Ritvik officiating acharya was to become a regular guru. The thing is, everything I am saying here is based on what Srila Prabhupada himself said. He quoted his own guru, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, who instructed that the GBC are not to ordain gurus.
Not rubber stamp.
It is not be effective. You can cheat, but you can know it.
Not rubber stamp.
It is not be effective. You can cheat, but you can know it. You can cheat. It is not be effective.
Prabhupada referred to that as an ineffective cheating process. I'm not making this up. I'm not twisting words. These are what Srila Prabhupada himself said. Srila Prabhupada called devotees, referring to his own disciples who would pose themselves as guru, who are not yet qualified. Prabhupada called them rascal gurus. And the GBC fully admit that Srila Prabhupada never actually ordered any of them to become guru, because most of the 11 fell down. And after they fell down, they realized, well, they weren't actually qualified. But we cannot repeat, today I cannot repeat the words of my spiritual master, ISKCON's founder Acharya, within his own centers, where he spoke on these things. I cannot go and give class and say that these devotees who pose themselves as guru are not actually qualified. Prabhupada called them, and I cannot say that Prabhupada called such devotees who pose themselves as guru, who are not fully qualified, who are not on the Mahabhagavat stage, that Srila Prabhupada called them rascal gurus. No, I would be kicked out of the temple. I would be kicked out of Prabhupada's temple for repeating the words that His Divine Grace himself spoke. I cannot repeat the instructions of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta gave, that was repeated by my own Guru Maharaj, that the GBC are not to ordain or select gurus. I cannot say that in Prabhupada's temple, or I will be kicked out of the temple. And that in Srila Prabhupada's own words, he described that process of GBC rubber stamping gurus, just calling them gurus when they don't have the authority to make new gurus. Prabhupada called that an ineffective and cheating process. And if I say that in the temple, I will be kicked out. But that is what Prabhupada said. These words are the words and the teachings of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Yet Srila Prabhupada's own words have become banned in his own temples by this current GBC. It's no longer allowed for us, the Prabhupada Anugas, the ones who want to follow what Srila Prabhupada actually taught about this. It's no longer allowed for us to speak the truth about what Srila Prabhupada taught about Guru, the qualifications of Guru, and none of this. We can't speak this in Prabhupada's temples. And we don't have the motive to bash anyone. We're not envious of anyone. We simply want to preach the truth about what His Divine Grace actually taught. We want to see the integrity and the purity of the disciplic succession maintained and held up to that high standard that a bona fide acharya holds it to. That before one becomes guru, he has to reach the Mahabhagavat stage. Before His divine grace would order anyone or allow anyone or give his sanction to anyone to become guru. They have to come to that highest stage, the topmost stage of devotee. Uttama Adhikari Mahabhagavat Paramahansa. Otherwise, it is simply rascal gurus and a cheating process. And yet, if I try to teach this, if I try to preach what Srila Prabhupada taught in this regards, I will be banned from his temples. I will be labeled a fallen and a poisonous devotee, a deviant devotee who's simply spewing horrible, envious poison. It is Srila Prabhupada's teachings, it is to see to the integrity and the purity of the disciplic succession. And yet the system that Srila Prabhupada spent years on slowly setting up by delegating a little bit of the process of initiation, temple presence, a little bit, and then once he established GBC, delegating more and more of the aspects of initiation. Until before he left, there was a system that was all it needed. It was one more final step, just one last final step. And it would be a system which no longer required Srila Prabhupada's physical involvement or physical presence. And he saw this as a way to maintain the disciplic succession for right now, to maintain the purity of the disciplic succession, the integrity of this disciplic succession, rather than, and because there was a need for a pure devotee to continue to give initiations, because he had just started to establish this Krishna conscious mission, spreading Lord Chaitanya's mission all over the world, there was a need for a bona fide spiritual master to give true spiritual shelter that only a pure devotee can give. And so he chose to do that one last step and created this Ritvik system, and he asked it to go on where he can continue to give the initiations, he can give the spiritual shelter, because it was needed. He took an unusual step because it was the unusual circumstance and it was needed. He fully authorized that system and empowered it with his transcendental eternal Vani, with his spiritual instructions. That system is today openly bashed and trashed and vilified in his own temples, along with those who uphold it as a system that Srila Prabhupada wanted. This is entirely all wrong. It is upside down. It is backwards. Because the GBC has been on the wrong side of this issue from day one. From the time whoever wrote that report for the GBC meetings of May 28th, they got everything wrong. And that is what started the whole GBC to accept that this July 9th letter could only be while Prabhupada is present, because he already said he's going to select men, and those men will be regular gurus. But that's not what he said. That report was wrong. It misled them. They got the July 9th letter wrong. They got everything wrong since then. They established the system, and they are so damn stubborn, they won't admit they were wrong and reverse it. 40-some years. But it's never too late, because Srila Prabhupada's mission is going to go on for at least 10,000 years. We know that. So they don't have plenty of time. But 43 years, it's just a drop. So it's time to reverse it and establish finally what Srila Prabhupada actually wanted.